Welcome to Black X Wolf Entertainment. Today, we begin a dive into the unknown with Chapter 1 of Join Us as we venture into the abyss to uncover secrets lost for centuries. The crew of the E is on a groundbreaking mission, driven by the promise of discovery. Their destination, the lost city of Nethris, an ancient civilization swallowed by the ocean's depths. Captain Arya Steele leads the team, all drawn by curiosity. But they'll soon wish they had never found this place. As they descend into darkness, deeper than anyone has ever gone before, the last traces of sunlight disappear, leaving them in the chilling embrace of the abyss. Strange readings flash across their screens, signaling an anomaly far below. And then ghostly lights flicker around them. Something or someone is out there.
Do you hear that? It's like something's out there, watching us.
Their equipment begins to glitch, showing distorted images as eerie, haunting lights flicker just beyond view. Fear creeps into their minds, but they push forward, inching closer to their target, and then at last they see it, the lost city of Nethris. Colossal statues rise from the ocean floor, hollow eyes staring back as if warning them away. But this city is more than stone and ruins. The crew has awakened something old, something hungry.
Did you see that? It was right there.
They thought they were here to make history, but now they've stirred the shadows, and whatever watches from the darkness is awake. Join us next time as the descent into the darkness continues. Will they survive, or become just another echo of the deep? To be continued. Subscribe to Black X Wolf Entertainment, like, comment and share.
Welcome back to Black X Wolf Entertainment. Tonight, we descend further into the haunting depths of with Chapter 2, Whispers in the Dark. Deep within the submerged city of Nethris, the crew of the pushes onward through maze-like streets, the silence pressing in, until something breaks it. Whispers, faint at first, but unmistakable, drift through the comms, calling out by name. One by one, the crew begins to hear the voices, though no one admits it at first. Tension builds as they push deeper into the eerie ruins, each shadow seeming to move, each sound growing louder. Biologist Kira senses something unnatural in the water, something ancient, something watching. Under growing pressure and paranoia, the crew's fragile sanity starts to crack. The whispers morph into screams, filling their ears, drowning their thoughts. When they find strange, inhuman statues staring back at them from the shadows, an overwhelming terror takes hold. What are these whispers, and who or what is calling to them from the darkness? Stay tuned as we continue the descent into madness. The abyss awaits. Subscribe, like, comment, and share Black X Wolf Entertainment.
Welcome back to Black X Wolf Entertainment. Tonight, we delve deeper into the chilling depths with Chapter 3, The First Vanishing. As the crew of the Abyss Explorer continues their exploration of the sunken city of Nethris, a sudden blackout engulfs the ship, severing all communication with the surface. The eerie silence weighs heavily on them, and panic sets in as the lights flicker back on. In the dim glow, a horrifying discovery is made. Ethan, one of their own, has vanished without a trace. The crew frantically searches the darkened ruins, calling out his name, but all that greets them is the unsettling stillness of the deep. When they find Ethan's dive suit abandoned outside the ruins, a wave of dread crashes over them. What could have taken him? As they grapple with the reality of their situation, strange hallucinations begin to plague the crew, visions of an ancient civilization collapsing under the weight of an unstoppable force, a reflection of their own fate. Each crew member is confronted with the ruins of Nethris as they were, filled with life, laughter and culture, now reduced to echoes of despair. But is it merely a vision or a warning of what's to come? The darkness of the deep holds more than just secrets. It harbors nightmares that may consume them all. Can they find Ethan before the abyss claims another soul? Stay tuned for Chapter 4, where the terror deepens and the fight for survival intensifies. The shadows are closing in. Welcome back to Black X Wolf Entertainment. In tonight's chapter of, we dive further into the haunting unknown with Chapter 4. The crew of the begins seeing ghostly figures, apparitions that look like the long-dead inhabitants of the sunken city, Nethris. Shadows move in the corners of their vision and whispers echo through the water, haunting them with every step. Are these visions a product of the crew's fear, or something far darker? As they continue exploring, they encounter monstrous sea creatures, twisted and deformed by the ancient power that lingers in the depths. With scales like armor and eyes filled with a cold, unnatural light, these creatures are unlike anything they've seen before. One of these abominations lunges at their sub, sending it spiraling, its metal frame groaning under the creature's force. A last-minute maneuver saves them, but not without damage. Their sub is crippled, leaving them stranded in the ruins, cut off from the outside world. Fear takes hold, and tensions erupt between Captain Arya and the crew. In the confined space of their stranded sub, accusations fly, anger flares, and the team begins to fracture under the crushing weight of their predicament. Desperation grows as they're faced with the horrible reality that they may never make it out of the ruins. With no way to escape and danger lurking in every shadow, the crew must confront the terrifying possibility. Nethris may have been waiting centuries to claim them as its own. Join us next time as the story darkens and hope fades. The ocean's grip is tightening and survival is slipping away. Welcome back, explorers of the unknown, to Black X Wolf Entertainment. Tonight we journey deeper into the heart of darkness with echoes of the deep, the Abyssal Awakening. Chapter 5. The Abyss stares back. Buckle up for a plunge into madness, mystery and terror. After days in the depths, the crew of the Abyss Explorer has finally reached the core of Nethris. Before them stands a temple, ancient and foreboding, a remnant of a time forgotten by history. Carvings wind up its black stone walls, depicting monstrous creatures bowing before a towering figure with a single, all-seeing eye. The faded etchings tell a story of worship and sacrifice, a civilization that gave everything to appease the depths. The crew can feel it, a weight, pressing down on them, thickening the air with an unnatural tension. As they enter the temple, the silence is broken only by the soft sound of their breaths, each step echoing off the damp, shadowed walls. The feeling of being watched intensifies, and some crew members swear they hear faint, guttural whispers emanating from the stones themselves. Each step feels like a descent into the jaws of the unknown. At the temple's center, they discover a pedestal draped in barnacles and coral, and upon it lies a relic, the Eye of Nethris. Encased in gleaming silver, it's a polished orb that seems to absorb the light around it, a liquid darkness swirling within. When they touch it, an icy jolt shoots through their fingers. The crew feels a thrill of triumph, and something far darker. With the eye in their possession, the very ocean around them seems to awaken, and a deep guttural roar reverberates through the water. The sea itself churns, currents colliding as if driven by some primal rage. Schools of fish scatter, but monstrous creatures begin to rise, summoned by the ancient power that now stirs in their midst. These creatures are unlike any sea life they've ever documented. Twisted, misshapen forms with scales black as midnight, eyes glowing with an eerie crimson light. Their bodies pulse with veins of dark energy, as if the very essence of the abyss flows within them. One of these massive beasts, a creature resembling a mutated anglerfish with jaws lined in rows of needle-like teeth, charges the sub, slamming into it with a force that sends shockwaves through the hull. Alarms blare as the impact throws the crew into a frenzy. In the chaos, the sub's systems flicker, leaving them stranded, defenseless against the sea's wrath. Frantic, they scramble to restore power, but something strange begins to happen. The air grows heavy and visions creep into the corners of their eyes, visions that defy explanation. They see phantoms of people dressed in flowing robes, their faces obscured, whispering chants in a language that sounds like a melody sung by the ocean itself. Flickers of an ancient civilization flash before them. A world that was once alive, now lost to the crushing depths. But these aren't just hallucinations. The lines between reality and nightmare begin to blur, twisting the minds of the crew. The eye of Nethris pulses with a dark energy, seeping into their thoughts, feeding off their fears. Crew members find themselves reliving their deepest terrors, memories of drowning, claustrophobic spaces and the unending darkness of the ocean's abyss. Their minds unravel as nightmares become reality, and whispers echo louder in their minds, taunting them, daring them to look deeper. The weight of the eyes seems to grow heavier with each passing moment, and the crew realizes they've awoken something far beyond their understanding. Captain Arya tries to rally her team, but they're slipping away, lost in their own fractured realities. And then it hits them. Whatever they've taken, whatever power they've claimed, is not theirs to possess. The abyss is no longer a silent observer. It has become a ravenous predator, and the crew is prey trapped in its lair. In these depths, there is no forgiveness, no escape. The darkness is alive, and it is staring back at them, watching, waiting, and most terrifying of all, hungry. As the waters stir with a violent, otherworldly energy, they realize that returning the eye may be the only way to appease this ancient god. But how can they give back what the ocean has already claimed as its own? They've crossed a line, and now the abyss demands retribution. Prepare yourself for what lies ahead. In the next chapter, our crew will face the full wrath of Nethris as the spirits of the deep close in. With nowhere left to run, the question remains, will they survive, or will they be lost to the darkness forever? Whispers from the depths, the city of Nethris. The crew, weary from weeks at sea, rejoiced at the sonar readings, a vast structure far below the waves. Could this be it? The mythical city of Nethris, spoken of in ancient mariners' tales. Excitement, laced with trepidation, filled the hearts of even the most hardened sailors. Their submersible descended into the abyss. The water turned an inky black, swallowing the light, and then it appeared. Nethris. The city was an alien landscape of impossible architecture. An eerie bioluminescence emanated from the structures. This was a place of power, ancient and terrible, and something, the crew realized with dawning horror, still lived here. The slumbering god, Oruthal, awakens. The submersible navigated through the city's silent avenues. The crew exchanged worried glances. The silence was unnerving. No living creature dared to enter this city. The only sound was the hum of the submersible's engine. Then a tremor, slight at first, then building in intensity. From the heart of Nethris, a colossal form began to rise, a creature of nightmares, ancient and powerful beyond comprehension. Oruthal, the slumbering sea god, was awakening. Its body, a mountain of scales and tentacles, dwarfed the submersible. Eyes, cold and ancient as the sea itself, opened slowly, fixing the crew in their gaze. Terror, primal and instinctive, gripped the crew. They were mere insects in the presence of a god. Their only thought was escape, to flee back to the surface. Seeds of madness. Paranoia grips the crew. The submersible, damaged during the tremors, limped away from the awakened city. Oruthal, thankfully, seemed content to remain within Nethris, for now. But the encounter had changed something. The crew, once a tight-knit group, now eyed each other with suspicion and fear. Whispers, like the ocean currents, spoke of curses and sacrifices. The constant pressure of the deep, once a familiar hazard, now felt like the weight of Oruthal's gaze upon them. The darkness outside the submersible's small window was no longer empty. Shapes moved within it, monstrous and indistinct. Were they real or figments of their terrified imaginations? Sleep offered no respite, only nightmares filled with the cold, unblinking eyes of the awakened god. The isolation, the fear began to eat away at their sanity. Their minds, already strained by the horrors they had witnessed, began to fracture. Small disagreements escalated into violent arguments. Paranoia ran rampant, fueled by whispers and shadows. They were trapped not only within the confines of their metal prison, but within their own minds. The ocean's eerie phenomena and hauntings. As the days turned into an endless, terrifying blur, the ocean itself seemed to turn against them. Storms, unnatural in their fury, battered their vessel. The waves, once a comforting rhythm, now roared with the voice of Oruthal, demanding their blood. Strange sea creatures, never before seen by human eyes, swarmed around the submersible, their bodies twisted and deformed, as if corrupted by some unseen force. The equipment malfunctioned with alarming regularity, plunging them into darkness and adding to the growing sense of dread. Whispers, cold and wet, seemed to emanate from the very walls of the submersible. The faces of the crew, reflected in the glass of the portholes, were gaunt, their eyes wide with terror. They were no longer explorers but hunted prey, trapped within a nightmare from which there was no escape. The line between reality and madness blurred. The crew, their minds ravaged by fear and exhaustion, began to see things. Ghostly figures, their bodies composed of seawater and shadow, moved through the submersible. They heard chanting, deep and guttural, echoing from the depths. Oruthal was calling to them, drawing them down into his abyss. Doomed souls' sacrifices for a god's rise. The horrifying truth dawned on them slowly, creeping into their minds like a cold tide. They were not meant to escape. They were not meant to survive. Oruthal had drawn them here, to his awakened city, for a purpose. They were to be sacrifices, offerings to appease a god. Their lives, their very essence, would fuel Oruthal's rise to power. The submersible, its systems failing, began its final descent. The pressure built, the metal groaning in protest. Outside, the monstrous forms of Oruthal's servants gathered, their eyes burning with cold, alien hunger. The crew, their faces a mixture of resignation and terror, huddled together. There was nowhere left to run, no hope of salvation. The ocean, once a source of life, had become their tomb. Oruthal, the slumbering god, had awakened, and the crew of the doomed vessel, their minds shattered, their bodies soon to be consumed, were but the first offerings in his reign of terror. The sea, now under his dominion, would claim many more. Welcome back to, in tonight's chapter, the darkness deepens, loyalty fractures, and the abyss tightens its grip on what remains of the crew. The crew's dwindling numbers are the least of their problems. Oruthal's influence is no longer a shadowy threat. It is a palpable, suffocating presence. Its power spreads like an unseen virus, warping minds and twisting reality. For some, it's whispers in the night, impossible to ignore. For others, like Miles, the ship's trusted engineer, it's a voice, a command that drowns out all reason. Miles, the pragmatic and resourceful backbone of the Abyss Explorer, is no longer himself. The god of the depths has claimed him as a pawn. Under Oruthal's control, Miles begins constructing strange, otherworldly devices using parts from the ship's systems. These constructs emit eerie, pulsating lights and vibrations that resonate through the ruins. No one understands their purpose, but one thing is clear. They are not meant to save the crew. They are offerings to Oruthal's rising power. The sea creatures, once disorganized predators, now follow a disturbing pattern. They move with precision, their attacks coordinated as if directed by a singular mind. Miles seems to share a bond with them, his cold, vacant stare mirroring the unrelenting hunger in their eyes. These monsters tear through the ruins, leaving no corner of Nethris untouched and no crew member safe. Captain Arya clings to her role as the leader, but doubt creeps into her heart. The crew is splintering, their resolve breaking under the weight of fear and despair. The ruins, once a marvel of discovery, now feel like a death trap. Every shadow hides a predator, every whisper carries a lie, and every step forward leads deeper into Oruthal's domain. Kira, the biologist, continues to struggle with the growing disconnect between reality and nightmare. Her expertise tells her the mutations in the sea creatures are unnatural, impossible by scientific standards, yet they're undeniably real. Each encounter with these horrors pushes her closer to the edge, and her belief in survival begins to waver. Meanwhile, the ruins themselves seem to breathe, their ancient carvings pulsing faintly as if in time with Oruthal's awakening. Faint, ghostly figures of Nethralis's long-dead inhabitants flicker in and out of view, their mournful gazes locked on the living intruders. It's as if they are warning the crew, or condemning them to share their fate. Captain Arya gathers the crew for a desperate plan. They must confront Miles and destroy his cursed machines before Oruthal's influence reaches the surface. But with each step she wonders, is it already too late? Are they merely delaying the inevitable, or have they unknowingly become part of Oruthal's grand design? The Abyss doesn't just demand their lives, it demands their minds, their souls. And as Oruthal's power spreads, it becomes clear that survival might not be the same as escape. Welcome back to the story of an expedition that ventured too deep. In this chapter, the crew faces their darkest trial yet, as the submerged city of Nethralis begins its horrifying ascent. And its grip tightens on their minds and souls. Stranded and vulnerable, the crew huddles together on the edge of survival. Their submersible lies in ruins, crushed by monstrous sea creatures in the last attack, leaving them with no means of escape. Above them, the waters churn violently as Nethralis, long buried beneath the ocean floor, begins to rise, dragged upward by an otherworldly force. If the city breaches the surface, Oruthal's wrath will be unleashed upon the world, and the crew knows they are the last line of defense. Armed only with the Eye of Nethralis, a relic of untold power, the crew descends deeper into the labyrinthine ruins in search of answers. The eye pulses faintly in their hands, illuminating their path with a cold, unearthly light. But its power comes at a cost. The crew's minds are fraying, their thoughts clouded by visions of Nethralis in its prime, a thriving civilization now reduced to endless ruins. Whispers echo in their ears, speaking in a language none of them understand, yet somehow feel compelled to obey. As they delve deeper, the city itself seems alive, shifting and reshaping around them like a living maze. Walls that once provided a clear path now twist into dead ends. Floors crumble beneath their feet, exposing yawning chasms that drop into pitch-black nothingness. The carvings on the walls, once merely ominous, now seem to writhe and move, as though trying to communicate a terrible secret. The hallucinations worsen. Captain Arya is haunted by phantom visions of her brother long lost to the ocean. Kira sees herself consumed by grotesque mutations, her body merging with the monstrous sea creatures she once studied. The remaining crew members report hearing their own voices speaking words they never said, urging them to turn on each other. Their trust is eroded as Oruthal's influence creeps into every corner of their minds. But hallucinations aren't the only danger. As the crew descends, the sea creatures grow more feral and grotesque. These aren't the beasts of the natural world, they are manifestations of Oruthal's power, twisted and maddened by the gods' hunger. One creature, larger than any they've faced before, ambushes them in the narrow corridors of the ruins. Its glowing, lidless eyes fix on the crew, and its serpentine body slithers with unnerving grace. With no weapons to defend themselves, they're forced to rely on the Eye of Nethralis, which releases a burst of energy that drives the creature away, but not without draining more of their strength. The deeper they go, the more the ruins seem to reject their presence. Earthquakes rock the city, and torrents of water surge through its halls as if the very ocean is conspiring to drown them. The crew realizes the city isn't just rising, it's awakening. Each step they take brings them closer to the temple at the city's heart, where they hope to find a way to stop the ascent. But the temple radiates a malevolence that feels almost insurmountable, as though Oruthal himself is waiting for them to arrive. Exhausted, terrified, and barely holding on to their sanity, the crew knows they are out of time. Nethralis rises faster with each passing hour, and Oruthal's power grows more palpable with every step. The line between reality and illusion has vanished, leaving them to question whether they're walking towards salvation or straight into the abyss. Can the Eye of Nethralis give them the answers they seek, or will it demand a price too great to pay? The answers lie deep beneath the depths, but so does something far more sinister. Welcome back to Black X Wolf Entertainment. In this chapter of Echoes of the Deep, the Abyssal Awakening, the final battle unfolds as the ancient city of Nethralis rises from the abyss, threatening to bring Oruthal's destructive power to the surface. The crew faces unimaginable horrors in a desperate bid to stop the end of the world. The ocean quakes as Nethris, the once-lost city, breaches the abyssal darkness, glowing with a malevolent light. Massive fissures rip across the seafloor, releasing bursts of steam and glowing particles that cloud the water. The crew, battered and broken, clings to their mission: stop Oruthal before the surface world becomes his domain.
This is it. We either stop him now or we doom everyone above.
Her voice shakes with both fear and resolve, but she presses forward, leading the crew toward the rising city's colossal temple. Inside, the air feels heavier, the water denser as Oruthal manifests before them in his full, monstrous form. His body is a horrifying fusion of ancient sea creatures, a kraken's writhing tentacles, a serpent's coiled tail, and glowing predatory eyes that pierce through the crew's very souls. His voice echoes like 1,000 crashing waves, drowning out reason and hope.
Fools who disturb my slumber, you will feed the abyss.
Armed with the Eye of Nethris, the crew launches their attack.
Using the last shred of my humanity, I will sabotage Oruthal's defenses. This is my sacrifice.
Ethan, the former engineer-turned-puppet, sacrifices himself to give the others a chance. Biologist Kira unleashes the relic's power, channeling its energy into Oruthal's core. The eye's brilliance cuts through the darkness, but it takes a devastating toll on Kira, leaving her unconscious. The temple begins to collapse, massive stone pillars crumbling as the city's ascent accelerates. The sea creatures swarm, defending their god with feral rage. Captain Arya and the last of the crew fight valiantly, but the creatures' numbers are overwhelming. One by one, the crew falls, their final moments marked by bravery and sacrifice.
I stand alone before Oruthal. With the last of my strength, I plunge the Eye of Nethris into the heart of the sea god.
A cataclysmic burst of energy is unleashed. And so the city of Nethris and its god are lost to the abyss once again, but at what price? What secrets remain buried beneath the waves, waiting to resurface? Don't miss the epilogue of Echoes of the Deep, the Abyssal Awakening. Subscribe to Black X Wolf Entertainment for the thrilling conclusion to this epic underwater saga. Welcome to the final chapter of Echoes of the Deep, the Abyssal Awakening. Chapter 10, Escape or Extinction. The crew's fight against the abyss reaches its heart-pounding conclusion. Will they escape, or will Oruthal's curse doom them forever? The once mighty city of Nethris crumbles, collapsing into the darkness from which it emerged. Colossal towers crack and fall, swallowed by the roaring ocean. The temple's brilliant light fades, but Oruthal's screams of rage echo like thunder, shaking the waters. The abyss fights to hold on to its prey, refusing to release the crew. Captain Arya drags herself from the wreckage, battered but alive. Beside her, Navigator Quinn clutches his side, blood seeping through his suit. The two survivors are all that remain, their only hope of escape lying in a damaged emergency pod perched precariously on the edge of the collapsing ruins. As the pod begins its ascent, the waters churn violently. Tentacles from the fragments of Oruthal's monstrous form lash out, seeking to drag them back into the abyss. Arya takes control, maneuvering the pod with expert precision, while Quinn frantically works to repair the failing oxygen supply.
Hold it together.
A massive tentacle wraps around the pod, crushing the hull. Sparks fly, alarms blare, and the crushing weight threatens to pull them down.
But Quinn grabs the Eye of Nethris, its fading glow still pulsing with residual power. He slams it against the control panel, releasing a burst of energy that severs Oruthal's grasp. The pod rockets upward, leaving the ancient god's last remnants sinking into the blackness. As they ascend, Arya glances out the viewport. Nethris is gone, but the ocean around them feels alive, watching. The water's pressure increases unnaturally, and strange bioluminescent shapes flicker in the depths, watching, waiting.
The pod breaches the surface, breaking through into the chaotic aftermath of a storm. Sunlight filters through storm clouds, casting an eerie glow on the waves. Arya and Quinn collapse, gasping for breath as relief washes over them. But the silence is deafening, broken only by the sound of the ocean lapping against their fragile vessel.
It's over.
Arya doesn't respond. Her eyes are fixed on the horizon where the waters ripple unnaturally. As the survivors drift on the open sea, one question remains unanswered. Did they truly seal Oruthal away? Or has the abyss merely bided its time, waiting for the next chapter of terror to begin? Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more thrilling stories from The Ocean May rest, but its secrets never do.